What happens when an African prince gets bitten and cursed with the greatest vampire of all time? Easy. You got this film right here with one blood sucking brother. Here's a revisited review of the first ever blaxploitation horror flick, Blacula. This is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So, greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome again to Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. I'm the Big D, and this time around I bring to you a special revisited review of the 1972 blaxploitation horror flick Blacula, released by American International, directed by William Crane, starring William Marshall in the title role. The film is about an 18th century African prince named Mamawalde, who is turned into a vampire and later locked in a coffin by Count Dracula in his castle in Transylvania in the year 1780, after Dracula refuses to help the prince suppress the slave trade. The film also has Vonetta McGee, Denise Nicholas, Gordon Pinsent, and Thalmus Rasulala. I hope if I mispronounced that, I apologize. The film was released on August 25th, 1972, and it got mixed reviews but was one of the top grossing films of that year. It was even the first film to receive an award for Best Horror Film at the Saturn Awards, and inspired a wave of blaxploitation themed horror films. Let's get into the story. In 1780, African Prince Mamawalde goes to Transylvania to seek the help of Count Dracula in suppressing the slave trade. Dracula refuses, however, and insults Mamawalde by making a pass at his wife, Luva. After a scuffle with Dracula's minions, Mamawalde is bitten by Dracula and transformed into a vampire while dead. Dracula then curses him with the name Blacula and imprisons him in a sealed coffin in a crypt hidden beneath his castle while leaving Luva with Blacula to die in the chamber. In 1972, two interior decorators, Bobby McCoy and Billy Schaefer, find the coffin and are informed that the coffin was previously owned by Count Dracula, who was killed by Van Helsing in the late 1800s, much like in the original Dracula novel. After purchasing the coffin and shipping it to LA, Bobby and Billy open the coffin only to become Blacula's first victims. At the funeral home where McCoy's body is laid, Blacula spies on mourning friends Tina Williams, her sister Michelle, and Michelle's boyfriend, Dr. Gordon Thomas, a pathologist for the LA Police Department. Blacula becomes infatuated with Tina, believing her to be a reincarnation of Luva due to her identically resembling the latter. Thomas notices oddities with McCoy's death that he later concludes to be consistent with vampire folklore. Blacula follows Tina after leaving the funeral home but unintentionally frightens her. Tina runs away from him and Blacula loses her when he is hit by a cab. Thus, he kills the cabbie, Juanita Jones, turning her into a vampire. Thomas, Michelle, and Tina celebrate Michelle's birthday at a nightclub, and Blacula shows up to return Tina's purse, which she'd dropped the night before. Thomas answers a call from the funeral home, and the director informs him that McCoy's body has gone missing. Blacula asks Tina to see him again the following evening, but they are interrupted by Nancy, a photographer, who takes a photograph of them together. Soon after, Blacula kills Nancy and destroys the photo she just developed, which shows Blacula conspicuously absent. The next evening, Blacula visits Tina at her apartment and shares how Dracula enslaved him and Luva and how he was cursed with vampirism. He and Tina then spend the night together. Thomas, Lieutenant Jack Peters, and Michelle are meanwhile following the trail of murder victims as Thomas begins to suspect a vampire of being the perpetrator. After Thomas and Michelle dig up Schaefer's coffin, the corpse rises as a vampire and attacks Thomas, who fends him off and drives a stake through his heart. Michelle now realizes the truth and that McCoy could still be out there. Telling Peters won't work because they need to show him what's going on. And to do this, they need to thaw out the corpse of Juanita. Thomas calls the morgue and instructs Sam, the attendant, to take Juanita's body out of deep freeze and leave the room and lock the door. Sam rolls her body out but neglects to lock the door due to a distracting phone call. Suddenly, the door opens and an undead Juanita rises and immediately attacks and kills Sam. Moments later, Thomas and Pierce arrive at the morgue to find blood smeared on the corridor wall near the payphone where Sam answered the call, but no sign of Sam himself. They walk into the exam room by the freezer where Pierce sees a sheet covered body lying on a gurney and pulls the sheet back to reveal Jones rising to attack him. Thomas keeps her at bay with a Christian cross, long enough to open the window blinds and expose her to sunlight, destroying her. That evening, Thomas, Michelle, and Tina are enjoying drinks at the club when Blacula arrives to pick Tina up. Thomas questions Blacula about vampires and makes it known that the police are planning a search for the vampire's coffin, provoking an uncomfortable Blacula and Tina to leave. Soon after remembering that Nancy never gave Michelle her birthday photos, Thomas searches Nancy's house and finds a photo of Tina standing in front of an invisible Blacula. He correctly deduces that Blacula is the vampire they seek, and that Blacula and Tina are together. Thomas rushes to Tina's apartment, finding them embracing. Thomas and Blacula briefly struggle, but Blacula knocks Thomas unconscious and flees, killing a police officer in a nearby alley as he escapes. After McCoy is seen walking the streets of LA, Thomas, Peters, and several police officers track Blacula to his warehouse hideout. They locate a nest of several vampires there, including McCoy, and destroy them, but Blacula escapes. Mhm. Okay, now for the ending. As always, you know the procedure. You have 5 seconds to stop this video at once. Go to the description box below and fast forward to the time below. As I count down now, if you've seen this movie already, please continue. Okay, you've been warned. Blacula hypnotizes Tina into going to his new hideout at a nearby underground chemical plant while Thomas and the police pursue him. Blacula dispatches several of the officers, but one of them accidentally shoots and mortally wounds Tina. To save her life, Blacula transforms her into a vampire. Blacula fights the police. One of them locates the coffin and alerts Thomas and Peters. However, Peters kills a newly turned vampiric Tina with a stake. Heaven believed Blacula would be in the coffin instead. Devastated and feeling he has no purpose to live after losing Luva again, Blacula commits suicide by climbing the stairs to the roof where the morning sun destroys him. And in the end, Thomas and Piers witness Blacula's flesh melting away with maggots coming out of his face until only a skeleton remains in the story. So, what did I think of Blacula? Well, I have watched this many times. This is a guilty pleasure, and I've got to say, this is one pretty good film. Kind of underrated, but pretty good though. This was a film that inspired a wave of blaxploitation themed horror films, as I've said already. It would later be followed by a sequel the following year in Scream Blacula Scream. But I've got to say, it's not too bad. The film got mixed reviews on its initial release. Variety gave it a positive review, praising the screenplay, the music, and acting by William Marshall. The Chicago Reader praised the film, writing that it would leave its audience more satisfied than many other post Lugosi efforts. Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune awarded this 3 stars out of 4, calling it well made and quite frightening. Well, I don't want to get into too many of the bad ones, but yeah. Rotten Tomatoes has a score of 46%. I know in some reviews, one one negative review from the New York Times stated that anyone who goes to a vampire movie expecting sense is in serious trouble, and the film offers less sense than most. In Films and Filming, a reviewer referred to the film as totally unconvincing on every level. The monthly film bulletin described the film as a disappointment for what promised to be an exciting new genre, the black horror film, and that apart from the introductory scene, the film conspicuously fails to pick up on any of its themes' more interesting possibilities, cinematic or philosophical. Phlo- I mean, philosophical. Excuse me. The film did, however, win the Best Horror Film title at the first ever Saturn Awards. Now, there's no reported budget for the film. The film made almost 2 million at the box office, thus becoming a hit. Now, I've got to say, this is really an interesting film. When after I had watched Sugar Hill, which would be released by American International 2 years later, as this was one of the films that really got became influenced with that. There would also be some other films, including that were produced in the wake of Blacula, that include the Ganya and Hess, which was released the following year in '73. I've never seen it before, as well as uh, Sugar Hill and Abby, which also was produced by American International and was released in '74, the same year Sugar Hill was. And actually, that also starred William Marshall. The film's portrayal of a black vampire influenced the creation of Marvel Comics' own story, The Tomb of Dracula, and its breakout character of Blade. Of course, Troy Brownfield noted Marshall's portrayal of the title character influenced later black horror antagonists in films like Candyman, Tales from the Hood, and Bones. Yes. Anyway, I actually like it. It does prove to be a pretty good blaxploitation flick, and I think it's good. But you don't have to take my word for it. You be the judge. Gene Page does the score for the film, and it's pretty good. the The song you hear at the beginning is pretty good. Which the soundtrack was released on RCA Records. But unfortunately, the main title theme is in a more upbeat tone than it is in the movie, and I kind of like the movie's version of the intro theme much more than the soundtrack version. Anyway, the music for Blacula is unlike that of most horror films, as it features a funk soundtrack as opposed to classical music. But nevertheless, Gene Page does a great job with this film score. It's incredible. It also has some music done by the Act the Hughes Corporation just before they had a big hit with Rock the Boat the following year. Yes, they play a band that's performing at the nightclub, and believe me, they perform some pretty good tunes. Like There He Is Again. You can actually find the Blacula soundtrack here on YouTube. So if you'd like, check it out. I haven't heard all of it, but I will say that I enjoyed some of what I heard. Now the film has a really good cast. William Marshall plays the role of Mama Waldy, aka Blacula. Of course, this is long before he even played the second version of the King of Cartoons on Pee Wee's Playhouse years later. But I must admit, he does a great job. He's really awesome. He delivers some pretty good lines too in this. I mean, when Dr. Thomas tells everyone that Bobby's body has disappeared and well, Shell's like, that's impossible. And Mama Wally's like, perhaps he wasn't dead. It's like, what the hell's that supposed to mean? Yeah. Oh boy. And he delivers a real good line after Juanita gets on him and what have you. When he tries to tell that he lost, well, Tina and what have you. It's like, I lost her because of you, imbecile. And Juanita's like, imbecile? Who you calling imbecile, boy? Yeah. Believe me, I do owe any of the audience if they're of that particular color of this movie, but I apologize. I wasn't trying to offend anybody in any way, okay? Please don't hate me. I was just trying to prove that I know some of these lines. But anyway, I have to admit, it's really something. Let's see. For the rest of the cast, we have Denise Nicholas as Michelle. She's good. Vonetta McGee as Tina and Luva. Good. Gordon Pinsent as Lieutenant Jack Pierce. He's good. And Thalmus Rasulala, who, of course, actually was one of the original cast members of ABC's hit soap One Life to Live. Of course, he also had done several other films, including Friday Foster with Pam Grier, which would be released from American International later on. And, well, of course, the same year the Blacula sequel came out, Coffee was released in 1973, the same year as that. Isn't that something? Yeah, I bet. But anyway, he's been in lots of others, movies and TV shows, a few I'm familiar with. We have Emily Yancey as Nancy, Ted Harris as Bobby McCoy, Rick Metzler as Billy Schaefer, and Kay Lester as Juanita Jones, and Charles Macaulay as Count Dracula. Oh yeah, and there is this guy Skillet, played by G2 Kambuka. If I mispronounced that, I apologize. He's as Blacula's leaving. He's like, that is one strange dude. And he asks Dr. Thomas, who is he anyway? And Dr. Thomas is like, one strange dude. Yeah, but again, I'm just having some fun here. I really wasn't trying to offend any values if it's of an African American audience that's probably watching this. Apologies. I'm not trying to be offensive to you in any way. It's just that I know these lines. Okay, promise. But of the whole, I found Blacula to be very enjoyable. I like its story. It's got a great score and great music and some good characters and what have you. Now, although you might not see much blood because this got PG rated by the MPAA. But anyway, yeah. Of course, now there would be another black vampire flick that would come out years later in Wes Craven's Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy. Yeah. But anyway, Blacula, it's pretty good. Would I recommend it? I would say, sure, go ahead. Give it a try. I mean, if you're curious about a blaxploitation horror flick, then Blacula would be right up your alley. So what did you think of Blacula? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and be a part of the Big D Nation. Continue to help support my channel, and you know the rest. Join me next time when I bring to you a revisited review of its sequel, Scream Blacula Scream. So if you like this, check out some of these other vids. I'll give you some other films with a black lead and what have you. In the upper left hand corner is one of the films I was just talking about that had a black horror antagonist, and that's the original Candyman from 1992. Or go to the upper right hand corner and see my review of Jordan Peele's breakout hit of 2017, Get Out. Or if you would like another blaxploitation horror flick, check out my revisited review of Sugar Hill from 1974. And the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., then I'm your guy. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.